All right, good evening, members of council, administration, and certainly those who are streaming from the comfort of your home. Welcome to our public meeting this evening. As I call the meeting to order, I want to report out that we had a closed meeting this afternoon, and it was an electronic in-camera meeting was held at 4:30, which was closed to the public under section 239, 2C, D, and E. And F of the Municipal Act 2001, which permits a meeting or part of a meeting to be closed to the public when the subject matter being considered is a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality, labor relations, or employee negotiations. Litigation, potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. At the meeting, council gave direction to administration on labor relations regarding Green Shield benefits and paid sick leave under Bill 284, and provided direction to town solicitor relative to a notice of arbitration and statement of claim respecting the taking of Manning Road secondary plan area, known also as MRSPA, stormwater management pond lands. So we'll dispense with our moment of silence and our national anthem. And so to the members, is there any pecuniary interest declared by a member of council regarding an item of tonight's agenda? I do have one here, which is the deputy mayor has declared a conflict of interest, which he will raise at the meeting. And so I will give that an opportunity. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to declare a perceived conflict of interest as I'm an administrator for the Windsor Essex Catholic District School Board.
Thank you. Any others? Yes, Councilor Houston.
Through your worship, I'd also like to declare on item 2C as my wife is an administrator with the Windsor Essex Catholic District School Board.
All right. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Jobin.
Yes, I'd also like to declare conflict on Public Works 2021-27 on the Hergut Drain, as we own land affected by that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That'll be duly reflected in our minutes of our next meeting. And to other members, if you find that you are certainly in conflict, please address the chair, and then we'll certainly deal with it as the meeting progresses. We do have members of council, the regular council minutes, May 11th, 2021. And we did have a special council meeting in those minutes. Also, May 11th, 2021, Invest Windsor SXE Mobility Strategy. And so if I could have a motion that the minutes of the regular council meeting and certainly the special council minutes of the special meeting on Invest Windsor SXE Mobility Strategy were duplicated and delivered by the members, and so to be adopted. Deputy Mayor Becchetti, Councilor Tonio. Any errors or omission on those minutes? Go ahead, Councilor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, just on the special meeting of council meeting minutes, see on disclosure of pecuniary interest, if administration can just check the statement that's there, it's left as a question, is there any pecuniary interest on an item presented in tonight's agenda? I believe there was none. It's not reflected in the meeting minutes.
Okay, we will do have that.
Thank you.
So the minutes as amended, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. I don't believe, Madam Clerk, we have any supplementary items to deal with this evening.
That's correct. No, we do not.
Then we'll certainly move on to delegations. And this evening gives me a pleasure to introduce the Greater Essex County District School Board, the manager of facility, Juliana Hinchcliffe, and Amico, being represented by Cindy Prince. And that's in regards to the North Shore Public School.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on agenda item 2C regarding the rezoning request and official plan designation change for 2 residential properties owned by the Greater Essex County District School Board. My name is Juliana Hinchliff, and I'm the Manager of Facility Services for the board. My team is responsible for the design and construction of all new school facilities. Our mission is to ensure that new facilities are integrated into the surrounding community, provide as much walkability as possible, and incorporate a learning environment that will prepare our students for all their future endeavors. In 2015, the Board of Education applied for a capital priorities business case for the replacement of D'Amigo Public School located at 14194 Tecumseh Road. The business case recognized 2 urgent needs for the board. The first need was the replacement of D'Amigo Public School that was built in various stages from 1945 until 1969. The board recognized the renewal needs for this building were extensive due to the age of the existing infrastructure. The building itself was also poorly situated on the site, with no ability to provide for on-site student drop-off or bus bay facilities. Additionally, the proximity of this site to Beech Grove Golf Course has presented challenges in the past, with golf balls entering the site, posing a potential safety risk to the students. Similarly, school facilities are not optimized to provide the best learning environment for the students, and with the aging infrastructure are not easily upgraded. The second need revolved around enrollment pressures at Tecumseh Vista Academy, which has required the use of portables since shortly after opening in 2011. The popularity of the school community required an extensive addition to the secondary school in 2015, which mitigated but did not eliminate the need for portables. As new housing continues to expand in the town of Tecumseh, this school will continue to experience additional enrollment pressures. In 2016, the Board of Education was granted approval and received funding for a 651 pupil place school to replace D'Amigo Public School on a new site. To put that in perspective, the existing D'Amigo is constructed to house 242 students. The board required the new site to be centrally located in the D'Amigo catchment area and continue to provide walkability for a majority of its students. Ideally, the new school would have a site size of 7 acres. Initial conversations with the town of Tecumseh and the town of Lakeshore highlighted the difficulty in acquiring a site of an appropriate size, which met the walkability requirements. The board did initially focus on a different site, but was unable to finalize the details to acquire the property. This refocused efforts to the town of Tecumseh, and the board turned towards the current 3 properties that are noted in the report before council. Although shy of the required 7 acres, the proximity to the existing D'Amigo Public School, the new site is less than 1 kilometer to the west, and the adjacency to Green Acres Park was key to the final selection of this site for the new school. The board is currently working on finalizing the school and site designs and has submitted for site plan control. In order to move forward quickly with the work, the board has located all the school facilities on the vacant land located at 13800 Tecumseh Road, which also ensures the entrance to the site aligns with Dorset Park Road. The construction of the new school at 13800 Tecumseh Road allows the project to continue to move forward while this rezoning and official plan designation change are considered by this council in the County of Essex. Administration at the town of Tecumseh has been instrumental in assisting the board through this process in order to ensure this project is built as soon as possible. The partnership with the town in the recently approved upgrades to Tecumseh Road leading to the new site will ensure that the site is properly serviced and the impact of the new site on the surrounding community will be minimized. The new signalized traffic light at the Dorset Park and school entrance intersection will ensure safe access for all students living south of Tecumseh Road. The official plan designation changes and rezoning of the 2 residential properties to school use will allow the board to demolish and remove all existing infrastructure on these 2 properties and creates a green space immediately adjacent to the paved play area of the new school. The board believes that the introduction of green space behind the residential properties along Arlington Boulevard may be well received by the residents, and the board would work with those owners to mitigate any issues with the transition. The location of the new school building to the west of the 3 properties also reduces the impact of the building on a majority of residents in the area. The board is excited to build this new school in the town of Tecumseh and appreciates all the efforts of both administration and council in seeing this project move forward. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much for certainly for your presentation. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Julianne, for being here and for making this presentation. I'm actually quite delighted to see this end result for the DM Eagle school population. And actually, I just was hoping to ask you about one of your comments about the 7 acres of the site. Can you elaborate as to kind of how that's desirable for a school, and how it might be mitigated through other ways? And you mentioned Green Acres Park being adjacent. So just hoping you might be able to elaborate on that.
Thank you for the question through you, Mayor. The wonderful thing about the location, it's about 1.5 acres short of the 7 acres. The 7 acres is typically, the Ministry of Education typically bases site design on a school or site size based on the enrollment of the school. So the larger the school, the larger the site. But with our inability to find a 7-acre site anywhere close to DM Eagle, this site, which is 1.5 acres short, the downfall of that is mitigated by the proximity to Green Acres Park and the ability for us to have a collaborative relationship with the town in order to use facilities on our site and for us to use facilities on your site as we require. And those discussions will continue into the future. There's certainly nothing formalized as yet, but we are looking forward to those discussions and the synergies that can be created between our board and the town of Tecumseh.
All right. Any further questions? Yes, Councilor Odenhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and to Ms. Hinchcliffe, thank you very much for your time and your presentation this evening. And again, I think this is a very much welcome proposed kind of use of this land, and well, not proposed, this is moving forward, so this is wonderful to see. On the point though of kind of shared resources, any thoughts to sharing kind of resources to the facility to the north of the proposed site, or of the site for this North Shore School?
We are always open to partnerships with all public entities, including our coterminous board. Those conversations have not happened at this stage. However, we are more than willing to have those conversations. And depending on the willingness on the side of the coterminous board, I think there's great synergies between the 2 properties.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Odenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, and just as a follow-up, great to hear. I think that would be wonderful because there, as I'm sure you're aware, there are some aspects of that facility to the north, if it could be shared, that 1.5 acre downfall, if you will, a shortfall that you referred to may not even be thought of because of some of the resources both to the shared by that facility to the north as well as to the town. So just would encourage you, if you can, any catalyst or any mechanism to initiate those conversations. It may result in something great for everyone, a win-win-win situation for all. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for that feedback. Appreciate it.
Any further questions or comments? Yes, Madam CAO.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to remind council that there will be an opportunity to have a very fulsome discussion about this. As you realize, the report on this evening's agenda seeks your permission to hold a public meeting on this matter in the very near future, and that would be probably the best time and place to vet all of the questions and concerns whilst we're in the public domain. So perhaps, Mr. Mayor, that report could be brought forward for consideration now that we have the delegation with us.
Yeah, no, that was my my motion actually to bring the report forward from our planning and building services, and maybe I can ask Mr. Hillman bring that report forward, and also the scheduling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Council. Yes, the report is report number PBS 2021-26 in the agenda, and it does speak to the issue that is being presented through the delegation. And what is being sought is permission to proceed to a public meeting. Sean, if we were to go to the report on page, just to help everyone who may be watching, page 160 of the agenda, there's an attachment that I think would help to visualize just the geography of the situation. So the property that was being spoken to is 13800. That is designated and zoned in our planning documents for a school site, and along with a number of other institutional type uses. And you can see Dorset Park just opposite on the south side of Tecumseh Road. So that's the access that would be proposed to be provided for this property. And the issue at hand is the properties outlined in the black dash line that are to the east of the lands already zoned and designated 13810 Tecumseh Road and 13814 Tecumseh Road. Those have a house on each property and are residentially designated and zoned in the official plan and zoning bylaw. So the board, in trying to advance this property, which is about 5.75 acres in total, the area in red, so that the entire site could be used for school purposes, has filed applications to change the designation and zoning on the two easterly properties. And then, Mr. Mayor, if we just proceed to the next drawing, Sean, please. It's just a conceptual drawing that has been provided by Ms. Hinchliffe by the board, and it illustrates what she was describing, that the school would generally be centrally located. It's the land outlined in red again, and the black dash line is the lands that are proposed to be added that have been purchased by the board that need to be redesignated and rezoned. And you can see that there's a access drive opposite Dorset. With the applications, a traffic study has been undertaken. There is the need for signalization at this location, some improvements to the road network itself, and as well as had been mentioned in the report, we do discuss that council has supported Public Works in advancing a stormwater detailed design that would bring an outlet to this site and send the stormwater to the east all the way over to where the storm sewer exists, some distance just west of Pike Creek. And so that design work has been undertaken, it's been initiated, and it's thought that construction of the necessary stormworks would begin in 2022. So there has been a sort of an alignment of issues here to help the school board advance this school site. And so for this evening, we are seeking authorization to proceed to a public meeting for the two areas, two properties outlined in the black dash lines, so that they can be considered to be used for institutional uses. If there's any questions, Mr. Mayor, happy to answer those.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hillman. Any questions or comments from Mr. Hillman? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Tonio.
through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Hillman. When you mentioned signalization at the intersection there, do we know what type of signals would be? Would it be traffic signs, three-way stop? Would it be a, the regular Christmas tree lights? What would it be?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Good question. Went into some details I could have anticipated, but it would be traffic signals. So not signs, full signalization. And in fact, in addition to the signalization, there are, I believe, some turning lane improvements. In addition, we'll be seeking some sidewalk construction to the site. So it will be a full reconsideration of that entire Dorset area.
And Arlington still would be a three-way stop, or that'll be considered depending on how the traffic study comes back?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, currently it would remain a three-way stop.
Thank you very much.
More traffic calming. Any further questions or certainly comments? Then if I could have a motion to schedule a virtual electronic public meeting to be held on Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. in accordance with the Planning Act for applications submitted by the Greater Essex County District School Board for the eastern 0.6 hectare or 1.48 acre portion, 13.810 and 13.814 Tecumseh Road of a 5.75 acre parcel of land in at 13,800 and would basically be combining those lots, if I'm correct in saying. So it's situated at the north side of Tecumseh Road, and it's approximately 60 meters, 200 feet west of its intersection with Arlington Boulevard to amend the Tecumseh official plan and St. Clair Beach zoning bylaw 2065 by one, redesignating it from residential to community facility. And those are those two little lots. Rezoning it from residential type 2 zone R2 to institutional zone 1 in order to facilitate an enlarged site for the proposed North Shore Elementary School to be authorized. Motion moved by Councilor Tonio, supported by Councilor Dowie. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that motion is carried. Mrs. Hinchcliffe, I believe we're set for the June 22nd meeting, and I certainly want to. I certainly want to thank the school board and so forth. I know I have always been and so has council, very strong proponents on schools, and especially elementary schools. They play a major role in defining a community. They're the foundational piece, I find. And it's now looking at, it's going to be kind of an educational center, certainly in that area. So we wish you well, and certainly to the board. Please extend to your board chair and to your trustees. We're looking forward and working hand in glove with your organization as well as ours.
Thank you very much. And we do. We look forward to this great partnership that we're just on this cusp of starting. So we're looking forward to getting this school built. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, members of council, we can move on to communications, and we do have 19 pieces of communications. If I get a motion to receive. Councilor Dowie and Councilor Arnhoff. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. There are no communications for action identified. Is there anything in the 19 items that council would see fit to bring forward? Councilor Dowie?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to highlight, we've seen this at number 18. We've seen this a couple of weeks now at council, that this ask is coming for different rural municipalities for asking school boards to provide transportation when there's a dead end road. And I don't believe that we have this situation in our municipality, but I was curious about this and whether this is an issue that we have encountered from anyone who's more experienced than I around the table.
I haven't, Counselor Dowie, but I can certainly ask if there's anything administratively. Nope.
Not that I'm aware of.
And that's who I would have referred it to our planner, but I don't think there's it's been an issue in our community. Okay. No committee minutes to report, but we do have reports. And the first one on the docket is from our Chief Administrative Officer, and it's the Tecumseh Police Services Board response to proposed Community Safety and Policing Act regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, muted. So finally, through you to council, finally, we are seeing some movement within the Ministry of the Solicitor General to populate the Community Safety and Policing Act with regulations. So they are publishing, they have published 5 draft regulations, proposed regulations, and have invited comment from police service boards across the province and chiefs of police, as well as the OPP commissioner. In turn, our police service board was circulated the draft proposals for regulation and asked for their comments. They have, the chair has submitted a response and focused on the regulation that pertains to the OPP Governance Advisory Council. The OPP Governance Advisory Council is a new creation under the legislation whereby the Minister of the Solicitor General would seek advice from a committee, an advisory council, on prescribed matters that are set out in sections 59 to 62 of the new legislation. So the indication here is that the new advisory council would have a minimum of 11 members and a maximum of 20 members. And then there are a number of provisions about who can and cannot be appointed to that council. The chair, in his response to that proposed regulation, suggests that the membership of this governance advisory be restricted to only include representatives of municipalities served by the OPP, and that members may also concurrently serve on police service detachment boards. He's suggesting that the representation should be divided up as per the zone system that's currently established by the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, with at least 2 representatives from each of those 6 zones. And then that there be an additional First Nations representative independent of and in addition to the geographic zone representation, that there is a mechanism to ensure diversity and inclusive representation of all citizens. And the new Governance Advisory Council, he suggests a meeting roster of at least 6 times per year to provide for meaningful input to the minister on those prescribed matters that generally include the performance of the OPP commissioner, policy development, including policy respecting the provision of adequate and effective policing, strategic planning, and other directions to the commissioner. He's suggesting that the advisory council should be funded by the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and that it be resourced sufficiently, and that provisions be made for virtual meetings as may be necessary due to weather or public health considerations. So with those comments, we are seeking council's concurrence to forward those on behalf of the Tecumseh Police Services Board to the Ministry of Solicitor General, and such comments are due by June 7th of 2021. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Evans. Members of the council, your pleasure. Any questions or comments? Then there's a motion requirement that the Tecumseh Police Services Board response to proposed Community Safety and Policing Act regulations be received, and that the comments contained in report number CAO 2021-08 pertaining to the draft regulations for the OPP Governance Advisory Council be endorsed and submitted to the Ministry of Solicitor General by June 7th, 2021. Deputy Mayor Bichetti moves, supported by Councilor Tonio. No further questions or comments on the motion. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that motion carries. All right. Ms. Evans, I think you're still on the second part of that one, and
Yes.
which is the Essex County Detachment Board composition.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as council will recall, there has been a fair bit of discussion and joint effort towards trying to formulate the appropriate composition for a detachment board serving the Essex County Detachment, OPP detachment. So with the new Community Safety and Policing Act, the current police service boards will be dissolved in favor of a regional approach to police service board representation. Initially, there was a joint meeting back in January of 2020 that discussed this matter, and under the facilitation of Janice Forsyth, we came up with the Forsyth report, if council would recall, where we were suggesting one board would represent the area. Once again, we held a joint police service board meeting and also included Peely Township and the Caldwell First Nation were invited to attend, but were not present because the Minister of the Solicitor General has now asked for a consensus on board detachment model for submission to the province again by June 7th, 2021. And they're asking that one board model be put forward from each detachment area. So the meeting was held on May the 13th. And during the course of that meeting, the attendees deliberated on two board models. The one board model that was the Foresight Report product in 2020, and then a two board model that was subsequently put forward by the municipality of Lakeshore. And after a fair bit of discussion, the consensus of the police service boards and municipal representatives that were in attendance was in favor of a two board model. And that would create a model for the a board for the North Shore of the Essex County region and another board for the South Shore. There are two different configurations that are in play at the moment and really to be determined by the town of Essex, because one configuration puts Essex with the North Shore board and the other configuration puts Essex with the South Shore board. So the following the meeting, of course, the intent was to bring this recommendation with a two board model to each of the municipal councils for deliberation and a motion either in support, with the all of the information from each of the council resolutions being compiled into one submission, which Tecumseh was nominated to make on behalf of everyone to the Solicitor General by June 7th. So we're here this evening to seek council's endorsement of the two board model as the preferred detachment board composition for the Essex County OPP Detachment Board. It's outlined in greater detail in the attachment to the report. I'll refer it back to you, Mr. Mayor. you were present and chaired the meeting, and perhaps you would also like to offer your comments to council in this regard.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And certainly I want to take this opportunity to thank yourself and Ellen Pruchat and certainly Chair Hales. And, you know, for preparing and certainly organizing and building the agenda and getting the consensus and et cetera, within the region to get this issue not only on the table, but certainly after length discussions, at least have a resolution that is going back to municipal councils to make that certainly that decision. Not to be mistaken to members of council, the board makeup is basically a governance piece. Contracts are still, you know, at the end will be the responsibility of the municipalities. And it's not, you know, Tecumseh will still be Tecumseh and Lakeshore the same. But the governance model obviously will be reduced from 5 boards to 2. So in that regards, and that's fulfilling, I guess, the new mandate by the minister or the Ministry of Solicitor General. So with that, it's now the meter's running. We've got a couple of weeks to make our submission in certainly in that regards. And the submission itself, I would say it's not the end all. The ministries can still make the decision, you know, certainly in that regards. But I think maybe the sense of urgency is you're better to try to make a decision locally than to have the ministry make it for you. And I think that was pretty much, and I must say the representatives from the other 4 municipalities realized that and certainly in that regards. And quite frankly, it was a good meeting, you know, with the other municipalities. And now we know more since that meeting that Leamington is not going to be looking for Section 31 policing. They're going to be remaining with the Ontario Provincial Police. So they'll be still part of the bigger detachment. So with that, if there's any questions, members of council, yes, Councillor Antonio.
Just a comment, just from my background in policing, the 2-board idea works very well, just the way our demographics are, the county, and a lot of the populace are along our shoreline. So I like that idea with the 2 boards. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? If not, then I need a motion that the Tecumseh Town Council endorse a 2-board model as the preferred detachment board composition for the Essex County OPP Detachment Board, as outlined in attachment 1 to report number CAO-2021-09, Essex County OPP Detachment Board composition. In that report, CAO 2021-09, Essex County OPP Detachment Board composition be received. Councillor Altenhoff, Councillor Tonio. No further questions or comments. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you. Next, planning and building services. We have again, planning and building services financial incentive program grant application. Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan at 11865 Tecumseh Road, also known as 1912909 Ontario Inc. Parking Lot Improvement Grant. And Mr. Jeffries is going to bring this report forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council. This is the first of 2 reports tonight involving properties for which funding is being sought through the Tecumseh Road Community Improvement Planning Grant Program. This one involves property at 11865 Tecumseh Road. And Sean, if you could please go to attachment 1A, page 132. actually that, yeah, this attachment shows the subject property in the context of the CIP area. It's at the southeast corner of Southfield and Tecumseh Road. Next attachment, please, Sean. And this is just a close-up of the property. It shows the location of the existing approximate 3,000 square foot commercial building. The yellow denotes the facades, the northeast and west facades that are currently being improved. Council will recall that back in September of 2020, it granted $3,000 for planning, design, and architectural grant program. And then in March of this year, another $15,000 was granted for the work related to the improvement of those facades. And that work is as I said, underway now. The landowner is now before council requesting funding under the parking area improvement grant in the amount of $10,000, which represents the maximum grant amount for that in order to replace the asphalt, delineate the parking spaces, improve the catch basins, and add a decorative fencing around this parking area. And he is also looking for funding under the planning application and permit fee grant program in the amount of $1,680, which represents the building permit fee associated with the facade work that he's currently undertaking. We've received 2 reliable quotes related to the parking area improvements, and administration supports the applications, deemed them to meet the objectives of the Tecumseh Road CIP, and we recommend that they be deemed eligible for funding.
All right, any questions or comments? So the motion reads that the grant application for Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan, CIP Financial Incentive Program for the property located at 11865 Tecumseh Road, roll number 374402, a whole bunch of zeros and 20, be deemed eligible and approved for the parking area improvement grant in the amount of $10,000. And number 2, planning application and permit fee grant program in the amount of $1,680 in relation to the building facade and parking lot improvement proposed of the subject property, all of which is in accordance with section 11.35 of the CIP and with the PBS 2021-24. Moved by Councilor Houston, Councilor Dowie, support. No further questions or comments. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Second application, financial incentive program grant application. That's Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan, Kona Sushi Inc., 11977 Tecumseh Road, Planning and Design and Architectural Grant Program. Go ahead, Mr. Jeffries.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Sean, if you could turn it to attachment 1A on page 144 of the agenda, please. So the second application tonight involves property at 11977 Tecumseh Road, and it's owned by Kona Sushi, recently purchased the property. It's on the southwest corner of Shawnee and Tecumseh Road. And it's kitty corner to Frank Brewing and Oven 360, just to provide some additional context. Next attachment, please. So the 7,500 square foot building is situated on the northeast corner of the site, and the balance of the property is occupied by parking. The owners are looking to make a number of improvements to the interior and exterior of the building. Today, they're looking to receive $3,000 through the the CRP Planning, Design, and Architectural Grant Program. And again, that represents the maximum amount. They're asking for this money to ensure that the proposed facade improvements and parking area improvements that they're planning are in keeping with the CIP architectural guidelines. We've received 2 reliable cost estimates associated with this work. And once again, administration supports the applications and recommends that they be eligible for funding.
All right, any questions or comments to Mr. Jeffries? See none, then a motion that the Planning and Building Services Report PBS 2021-27 of the town's Tecumseh new official plan proposed County of Essex modification to count. Oh, I'm ahead of myself here. That the grant application for the Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan CIP Financial Incentive Program for the property located at 11977 Tecumseh Road be deemed eligible and approved for the planning, design, architectural grant program in the amount of $3,000 in relation to the preparation of drawings for the building facade and parking area improvements proposed for the subject property, all of which is in accordance of section 11.35 of the CIP and with the PBS 2021 -25. Councillor Altenhoff moves, that support. Councillor Jobin. No further questions or comments. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, we've dealt with C. And so we'll go to D. It's Tecumseh new official plan, proposed County of Essex modification to council adopted official plan. Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Hillman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just take the lead on doing a quick review. Albeit Chad has been very involved with this process, in particular in dealing with the County of Essex and so on. So as council will recall, there has been an extended period of time over which there were discussion papers prepared for a new OP, a draft was prepared, public consultation took place through a very extended process. And ultimately, council adopted a new official plan in February of this year. Under the Planning Act, that document then proceeds on to the County of Essex, who is the approval authority under the Planning Act for official plans. And as is common with official plan documents, there is the opportunity and the potential that when consideration is being given by the approval authority for the ultimate approval, that there could be modifications made to the document, which could be for any number of reasons. So for a document of 150 pages, we aren't surprised that there are some modifications coming back to us, because quite often you'll even see them on small individual amendments to official plans. So when it was adopted by council, an entire record proceeds off to the county, which is basically our file is transferred to the county office. And the county planner then proceeded to have engagement with ourselves, and at times including some of our engineering staff, with the Essex Region Conservation Authority, with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, who prior to, maybe 15 or so years ago, the ministry actually was the approval authority for a region, but they delegated that authority down. But they are still very engaged at the official plan development stage and at the approval stage. And in addition, there were discussions with representative of Walpole Island First Nation. As a result of those discussions, there were a number of modifications that were proposed, and some of it was a function of some staffing changes at agencies, which, as you can appreciate, may create some different perspectives from an agency context. So what we tried to do, there were 15 modifications that were proposed by the County of Essex, and how this works is the modifications are put out. We've had a number of discussions on them. We're quite comfortable with them, but ultimately it's appropriate that council have an opportunity to see them before they are finally put into a formal report to county council, because actually, although official plan amendments and plans of subdivision are approved by the county planner, the actual official plan, if it's a new official plan, such as the case here, it goes to county council for approval, and they will actually approve the modifications. So for this evening, we're just seeking council support of the modifications proposed. That would be communicated back to the county planner, and then she would proceed to bring it forward for formal approval. So to assist council in this, we have attached to the document the proposed modifications to our report. And there are 15, and we tried to cluster them in terms of common themes. One is around the issue of additional residential units, which I'll speak to in a moment. The other is water resources and hazard land policies. The third is language around Indigenous consultations. There's been a few modifications there. and others are just generally described as minor modifications. So going through them in order, just as a high order review, Mr. Mayor, additional residential units, or ARUs as they are referred to. The official plan that was adopted by council did include language that allowed ARUs, or additional residential units. And under the Planning Act in Ontario, the provincial government made some changes a number of years ago that made it easier to provide for additional housing units within existing dwellings or behind existing dwellings. And in our prior discussions with the county and with the ministry, we had established where those would be allowed in residential designations and in the Maidstone Hamlet residential, for example. But under further discussions with the ministry, there was a sort of a reconsideration of how that scope could be enlarged to better reflect the provisions of the Planning Act, which are very, very permissive in nature. So before you, you'll see that there are fundamentally 3 sections of the plan that are proposed to be modified. The agricultural area, which could have we'll call them ARUs, an additional unit inside a house or in a detached building subject to a rezoning. In residential areas, which had already been accounted for in the council adopted official plan, there can be an ARU within a house, which had been allowed, and also to the rear of a house or a semi, and as of right on full municipal services. And then in the Maidstone Hamlet residential area, similar scenario, except accommodation is made for the fact that that area, although will be fully serviced, there can be consideration for an additional residential unit on a septic subject to the approval of the chief building official, who under the building code has authority to have that regard. Fundamentally, once we had looked through this, we could see that there were some modifications required to meet the expectations of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. We do believe the modification that's in front of council meets the provincial policy statement, the county OP, and particularly the growth management policies that are in all of those documents and in the new official plan as well, and recommend we are supporting those. The second is with respect to water resource and hazard land policy. So there's 2 modifications that are quite minor in nature, but one relates to more clearly establishing what the protection zone 3 and an event-based area is, which is sort of a broad definition that involves protecting our intake areas for water in Tecumseh. Given our intake is in the city of Windsor, we only have, they're called EPZ 3 zones, which are basically the ditches and creeks that are leading up to Lake St. Clair. So there was just some policy clarification as to what constitutes those areas. In addition, with respect to hazard land policies, the scope of what constitutes a limit of regulated area, or the LORA, which is an area that is subject to flooding potential, is clarified through the modifications. And thirdly, with respect to Indigenous consultations, there are 5 modifications proposed. And really what came out of the Walpole Island discussions were minor adjustments to more clearly establish where Indigenous consultations are appropriate. I would suggest probably the wording is more respectful. And so there's 5 modifications made throughout the document that are proposed. And finally, there are 5 minor modifications, as we put it, that are listed in the report. One deals with mobile homes are clearly now established, as is in the case in the official plans that have been in place for a number of years. They are not permitted except for temporary use as a garden suite or for farm help. We had neglected to include garden suites, which council will recall. There have been a couple of cases in the agricultural area where situation is such that care is required for a family member and it's only for a temporary period of time. And under the Planning Act, you can have temporary garden suites as long as they are easily removed, and a mobile home is an ideal situation for that, and an agreement is signed with municipality. So this accommodates that scenario. Another modification is with respect to climate change policy, which just more clearly establishes that when we're preparing planning documents such as secondary plans and master plans, that we can use those tools as planning instruments to meet the policy expectations of the climate change section of the document. There is some minor wording with respect to accessibility and universal design policies to more clearly establish that development applications will be reviewed through the lens of accessibility and universal design. Minor modification with respect to ensuring that when we're looking at severances, not only do we have regard to local road authorities, Ministry of Transportation road authorities with you front on those roads, but also the County of Essex, oversight on our part, that we had not included the word county road in that section. So, and finally, Mr. Mayor, there's a modification for clarity under the temporary use bylaw section, which is an area of the OP that implements, it's an implementation section, explains how the policies are implemented, that it clearly establishes in accordance with the Planning Act that garden suites can be allowed for up to 20 years under the Planning Act. So it's just bringing some alignment with the official plan to the Planning Act. So those are the modifications, Mr. Mayor. And as I said, with subject to questions and answers, with council's endorsement, that will proceed back to the county, who will then take it to county council, seeking approval. And then we will be, there will be appeal rights available at that time, but ultimately the plan will come into effect. So if there are any questions, Mr. Jeffrey and I would be pleased to try and answer them.
Councilor Dowry.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Brian, for quite a very fulsome view of these changes by the county. I'm most interested tonight about the additional residential units. And I guess one item that has been brought to my attention a few times is getting back to infill and offering housing options is this concept of tiny houses and like even units above a garage. And we have many of them on Riverside Drive, for example. So I'm wondering if that's in fact what we see in the official plan with these changes, that those are the kinds of uses that would now be appropriate for the community, and that as of right. Hoping you might be able to elaborate on that.
Thank you, Councillor Dowie, through you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, that is precisely what the objective has become. And really, you know, there, as council will be aware, there is an acknowledgement, I think, both provincially and locally, that there is a housing, there's a stress on the housing system to be able to provide an adequate supply. So your use of the words tiny house has been used frequently in the past. Units that are, as you said, above a garage, as an example, would be contemplated by this as of right. But what also needs to come with this are guidelines and zoning regulations that establish some of the scope, scale, size, and so on of what's required, this type of servicing that is required in this area. You know, it's interesting dealing with applications in a community such as Essex County, which is so flat. Drainage is a constant dilemma. So we would want guidelines around addressing drainage adequately. But that is what the province has clearly established as a priority for municipalities in Ontario, and to make those types of units available to the public, really just to optimize our existing housing stock and to allow for some level of intensification. I don't know, and Mr. Jeffrey might have something to add to that as well if I missed anything.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. Hillman captured the essence of what's happening. You know, we initially thought it would be a good approach to walk with these before we started running with these ARUs, and we had required a rezoning for the standalone units, but it became clear that the province really wants to see permissive policy language with respect to these. So that's what prompted a lot of the modifications related to those units.
Yeah, I mean, I call them secondary suites. I mean, where there's been a huge demand. I mean, that goes way back to, I think, the 1990s. Remember when they used to call them granny flats, and I know there's been a huge demand. I know as a member of the Housing Advisory Committee representing the county, I know the city is undertaking a huge piece on secondary suites. And I'm glad to see that, I think it was mentioned, crawling before walking. I think it's important too, because obviously there's a lot of, it's not just, putting up a wall, a couple of doors above a garage and say, here, you've got a secondary suite. It's adding, there's fire, there's, fire prevention and certainly many other rules and regulations and site plans and so forth that have to be met and so forth. But it is there is a huge push. Amos pushed it for a long time with the province and on the secondary suites and a lot of it is because now certainly baby boomers and especially with disabled children that are in the care of older families, they want to keep them within, especially now with a lot of home care and others. This type of housing can go a long way as well in support, the community and its needs for sure. So I'm glad to see this evolving, but it's going to take obviously a lot of work and certainly a lot of community. What's the right word that I'm using? Not involvement, but certainly understanding of what it really is. And so I firmly believe if we put the right pieces of the puzzle together and take care of, the site plan and others, then it makes for another add-on to the housing within the community. Okay, yes, Councilor Jobin.
Thank you through you. And I agree with a lot of the comments, the terms, tiny houses, nanny suites, everything we've been talking about for over the years. Just when you reference an ARU, their end site plan, there would be restrictions because you, for example, in the old Castle Hamlet, as it states, you can't just put like a 2,500 square foot second home on an already 5,000 square foot home on the property. I'm guessing there would be restrictions with site plan controls, basically on the size of the property would determine the size of the additional home, and it can't be a 2.5 story. There would be a lot of, like, am I saying that right, Brian? Restrictions and site plan control, basically.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just maybe to clarify one point, a site plan control generally is not used in this capacity. What we need to develop that we've been already researching are guidelines, two things. One, zoning regulations and general guidelines that will establish the framework that would be adopted by council, that will establish the framework of where and how these are appropriate, what scale, what size, what location on a property, and so on. So it will almost have something similar to a site plan, but it would be to the point where it's not an agreement on each individual property, which is fundamentally what site plan process involves. It would be a set of guidelines and regulations that pre-establish what is suitable and what is not. They are not intended to be, as your example gave, a 2,500 square foot home. They are, commonly referenced as tiny homes for a reason. They're small units intended to meet a very limited but specific need for housing.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? If not, then that the Planning Building Services Report, PBS 2021-27 Town of Tecumseh new official plan proposed County of Essex modification to council adopted official plan be received, and that the modification proposed by the County of Essex and the council adopted Town of Tecumseh new official plan be endorsed. Deputy Mayor McKetty and Councillor Houston. All in favor? Oppose if any, that's carried.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, Public Works, Environmental Services. We have 2021-23. It's a request to levy 2020 municipal drain maintenance costs. And Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before you today is recommending that bylaw 2021-38, which is also attached to the agenda tonight, be adopted. And this is to levy maintenance costs out for the 2020 municipal drain maintenance works. There were works that were completed on 12 municipal drains. They are identified in Appendix A, which is attached to the report. The summary of the costs. Excuse me. So the summary of the costs, the total amount of work was just over $91,000. We were able to secure OMAFRA grants in the amount of $7,700, which relates to about 8% of the total maintenance works. And the town of Tecumseh's cost is there in the right-hand column, just over 52,000, which is about 57% of the costs. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Doesn't appear to be any questions. Pretty straightforward. So basically just, Madam Clerk, I know you got two items here, but one will be followed up on the bylaw. It'll be read. So just a motion to receive the report right now. Councillor Tonio, Councillor Altenhoff. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. All right, item B, still Public Works. That's the South Talbot East Drain and the 12th line drain appointment of a drainage engineer. Pretty straightforward. Moved by Councillor Altenhoff, Councillor Houston, support that the drainage report be prepared in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act, including provisions for future maintenance. All in favor? Oh, we got a question? Okay, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I did have a quick question. I just, my screen froze up on you. My apologies.
Too late.
But it won't. No, come on now. It's actually just real. Well, the applicants did reach out to me, but I've spoken to Phil, and just in case they're viewing or any other viewers that are affected by this project, this will promote now the act of the roadside meeting, which at that time your concerns of any other drains or drains that drainage or any works that you've done privately over the years will be discussed and clarified. And then the projects do have to go through 2 more stages before it's even approved. So there is still time for understanding and communication, and we will be meeting those needs. Thank you.
Yeah, I see Phil nodding his head, so we're in compliance, I think. All right, next is the Public Works as well as McLean Hergot Drain, appointment of a drainage engineer as well. So it's to be appointed drainage engineer to make an examination of the drainage area and submitted by in the final notice of request for drainage improvement dated February 10th, 2021. So now we need a drainage report to be prepared in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act, including provisions for future maintenance. So moved by Councillor Tonio, Councillor Dowie, support. All in favor? Was if any of that is carried. Madam Clerk, we do have bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, we do this evening. We have, first of all, we have bylaw number 38, which amends the drainage assessments as just reported on. And we have bylaw 2021-39, which authorizes this execution of a site plan control agreement between the town and 1230839 Ontario Limited, otherwise known as Brelet Manor, which was reported on previously. We're respectfully asking for first and second readings to these bylaws. And then subsequently, if appropriate, we're seeking third and final readings for not only bylaw number 38 and 39, but also bylaws 14 being the bylaw to approve improvements to the Curtis Drain, and bylaw 15 amendments to or improvements to the Dawson Drain, as the appeal periods for these bylaws has expired.
All right, 2 readings. Councillor Altenhoff, supported by Councillor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And third and final reading on those bylaws identified for third reading by the clerk. Moved by Councillor Houston, supported by Councillor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Okay. Unfinished business? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question to perhaps Public Works there. Back in February, the town put those speed bumps or bump sign there for CP tracks along Lesbronce, and we were told, be patient, wait for the asphalt plants to open up in April. Well, it's the end of May now, and I don't know if another letter is required, Mr. Bartnick, from the town to remind them that we've been patient long enough, and they need to give us some timelines, because it's not fair to the residents to have those bump signs for 6 months looking like that. It was either actually prior to Christmas, so I don't know if we could follow up on our end.
Through your worship, we did send such a note to CP and Transport Canada on Thursday of last week. So there's been a lot of correspondence over the weekend. We are getting the assistance from Transport Canada to have CP come back out and finalize those repairs. We've been told middle of June at the latest. So we're going to hold them to that, and we're going to keep pressing them forward, because like you said, it has been a while, not only for the temporary repairs over the last number of weeks, but since we first identified the deficiencies in the tracks over a year ago.
Okay, and then it's also important, we've always had issues on those tracks there, and whether we have a project manager or they're explaining, are they doing anything special, in terms of more extensive work compared to just patch up jobs that they've done in the past. I just want to make sure that, as a town, we're there overseeing and actually knowing exactly what they're doing, so we're aware of what was done there, so that we have that for our file. The other question, and I think it's Mr. Bartnick too, on the weekend I received a call. There's some of those, the traffic calming signs that have been put up through the town. There's one location on Old Castle Side Road that they've been hit a couple times, and I don't know if the road's wide enough there, if they're cyclists or pedestrians. And it happened more than one occasion in such a short time period. Is that a location perhaps we can reconsider not to put them there and look at relocating them because of what's happened recently?
Through your worship, that is definitely a possibility that we can look into. I think one of the concerns that we had, especially with Old Castle Road, is that when we did place the speed trailer out there, the 85th percentile and even the average speeds were a lot higher than what we were comfortable with. So we thought it would be a good candidate to try and implement some calming effects on that road. But we can definitely take a look at the platform of the road again and see if there is sufficient space for some of those vehicles to get by.
Yeah,
okay, thank you. Yeah, I just want to, that was just one incident, but they've been well received in other parts. So,
yeah.
But just that one there, because they've been hit like on more than one occasion, just to kind of keep an eye on that if that's the right spot to put it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm wondering too, Phil, big pickups with the crash bumpers in the front where they don't show any damage. Somebody, driving and purposely hitting them too. But I've noticed the ones on Riverside Drive, even myself driving, it slows you down. You actually pay attention. So Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, if they keep getting hit, then it's telling me that somebody with the, you know, the crash bumpers and so forth are hitting them because they know they're flex, they bend. But unfortunate, you know, but trying to slow traffic down. Member Kid, our Deputy Mayor, have you got another? Sorry there for jumping in.
Yeah, no, thank you for the response. And again, it's important that we just monitor that. And, you know, I do like that pilot project that we're doing in town. So, you know, and the other question I had, are the locations that have been chosen, they're basically going to be there for a while. It's not like you're moving them around every 2 months, correct?
Yes, I believe the intent was to keep them there for the season. And then I think how they operate is they're supposed to be removed just prior to winter maintenance kicking in with the snowplows. So the intent is to keep them in those locations, but we still have some in stockpile, and you know, we're still looking at candidate roads on and where they should be rolled out.
Very good. Thank you.
Any further still on unfinished business? All right, new business. Councilor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to dovetail off these past discussions. I received an email today from a resident who resides on St. Gregory's Road, just north of the St. Andre School, and her family has a series of those kind of those small, I call them the little green people with the signs saying "slow down." She sent an email inquiring, saying, you know, would it be possible to put signage there potentially on the St. Gregory's area in front of the school, because that sign she has, she's indicated to me it's been driven over no less than at least 2 times. So she's noted speeds being excessive as well. So if it's possible, you know, to consider that as one alternative for those, I call them the mid-road signage, may be a good opportunity because, you know, the proximity to the school as well. That's one point. 2 other points. One, I don't know if the rest of the town was subjected to this, but we had a significantly large number of power outages over the past 3 days, on the order of about 5, no less than 5. And I really, first off, want to extend appreciation, first off, to the residents as well as Essex Power. I know I've had communications with Joe Barilli, and he's made it quite clear there's been a series of very unfortunate events that have kind of led to these issues. Unfortunately, the residents perhaps don't see all that. And I've certainly been trying to indicate to them, look at the social media sites, check EPL's website, because a lot of details are available to them there. But I do want to acknowledge EPL and their efforts on trying to get in touch with residents who've contacted me and asked for some updates. Hopefully these issues will have now been gone for quite some time, but seeing the number of outages that we've had, especially for the period, I think some of them ran for a number of hours. So it was a bit frustrating. And finally, I've received a call from a resident on Brighton, again, with regards to speeding and traffic. This is a bit concerning, as they're all concerning, but more so because this is involving the large construction vehicles. And because of their mass and size, certainly they possess a far more amount of kinetic energy potential to do issues. I've followed up with a resident and asked for some details on timing and other thing that I could potentially forward to the CAO. So I've been told that I'm going to be getting that information, and please, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO. As soon as I get those details, I will provide them to you. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, we'll make sure that I know Margaret wants to certainly address the Essex Power. She's had conversations with Joe Burrill, and I have as well as a chair. And unfortunately, that storm that came through, that mini storm, I call it, on Saturday evening, there was a pole fire, number one. It was struck by lightning. It destroyed not only the pole, but a lot of the wiring, the primaries to feed the transformer, that one. But it also blew 3 others. So there was 4 transformers had to be replaced. And the one that happened today is when you have, well, you know, as an engineer, that surge of power, in particular, if there's links and connections in underground cables, some of them have been there for 25, 30 years and have been hit. And sure enough, one of them was damaged because of the surge of power and so forth. But hopefully we'll cross our fingers, but we're getting into a storm season. And that one there was, as you would say, an act of God. It wasn't a squirrel running across the top or a raccoon or anything of that nature. It was a lightning strike. And it was very unfortunate that it really destroyed some pretty major infrastructure. So that was certainly the delays. And every time they isolate and repair and replace and re-energize, you're going to get reclosures throughout. And so those automatic bumps and power do occur. And but that's because the linemen have to be safe in their work and so forth. But on the communication piece, I'll let certainly Ms. Evans in her conversation with Joe Burrell, the manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And just briefly, I did, to the mayor's point, have a conversation with Joe Burrell. He's working on communications regarding the series of events, unfortunate events over the weekend that will be distributed to mayor and council tomorrow, and then used by the corporation to message out to residents who have contacted us with respect to their concerns on the power outages. So that should be forthcoming tomorrow, we're told.
All right, thank you for that. Any further new business, members of council? None. Then I need a motion to confirm the proceedings of our meeting today, our regular council meeting of the Corporation of Town Tecumseh, be given first, second, third, and final reading. Councilor Tonio, Councilor Altenhoff, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And if there's no notices of motion, then if there's no further business, then our next meeting, members of council, will be Tuesday, June 8th. Will be an early start, 4:30 with an in-camera meeting, followed by a special council meeting, which would be the community safety and well-being plan at 5, followed by 5:45 a public council meeting on the Sear Drain, 6:15 public council meeting, South Talbot Drain realignment, and a regular council meeting at 7 p.m. So if there's no further questions or comments, then adjournment is in order. Moved by Councillor Tonio and Councillor Dowie. All in favor?
Sir, Mr. Mayor, I believe Mr. Anthony wanted to say something.
Too late. Mr. Anthony.
No, sorry, I just through Mayor McNamara to members of council and the public that is watching. So with the changes last week of the order from the province, we scrambled on Friday to get everything we could open. There were 2 amenities that were not able to be open, but I would like to provide a schedule tonight for council in case you get any phone calls or emails, as well as, again, the public watching. So tomorrow we will reopen the skate park under the same conditions we closed it under. We will have it monitored by staff with a maximum of 10 people inside. They can stay for 30 minutes and then they have to rotate out. And if you recall, this was done strictly because the numbers got far too large and they were uncontrollable. And we right outside of our office in the OPP office, we needed to address that. So that is one. Number 2, the splash pads that came in the announcement and it was confirmed on Friday. We have staff now that are commissioning the splash pads. We've requested the Board of Health come in and do the check of it. And our goal is to have them open for this Friday for the summertime. So if the residents can bear with us, again, they were last minute notifications, and we did our best to get everything we could open, but we still have a couple to go, and those are the timelines.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you for that. And that'll be posted obviously on our website and all of our social media outlets. Thank you. Councillor Dowie, I saw your hand.
Yeah, you know what? I thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank Mr. Anthony for making such a viable effort to get those splash pads commissioned, especially as well as for the skate park. I know how much work is involved with getting that commissioning and lining up all the scheduling. Boy, I think we're going to have a lot of happy residents as a result of your hard work. So thank you for getting that done, and yeah, looking forward to it. I know we all are. And I recognize how much effort you've put in to make that happen.
Very good. Excellent. Okay. So I did have, did I call the question though? Or I did have a mover and seconder.
Yes, there was a mover and seconder, but the question wasn't called.
All right, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of adjournment? Thank you very much, members of council and administration, and certainly those who are watching from the comforts of home. Thank you for participating this evening. And so we bid you a good night, stay safe, and until we meet again on our next meeting in June.